Growing a business is kind of tricky right now. Supply chains are squeezed, tariffs and trade policies are dynamic, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. You need clarity to come out on top. Without it, you risk falling behind. If only you could hop in the DeLorean and see the future, right? Thankfully, there's NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite has real-time forecasting to help you move ahead with confidence. This is your AI-powered business management suite and the #1 cloud ERP. Trusted by over 42,000 businesses, NetSuite brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. And with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. Hey, I get it. You've worked really hard to build up your business, and it's doing great. So great that you need help now. The most important thing for your business is to hire the right people to support it. So how can you find amazing candidates quickly? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. And with Sponsored Jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, Sponsored Jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. And it's one of the largest databases of job seekers, too, giving business owners access to a wide range of candidates. And one of the things I love most about Indeed is the job alerts feature. I get notified when new candidates apply. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/smartpassive. Just go to Indeed.com/smartpassive right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/smartpassive. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. The perfect product launch. It's the goal for every brand marketer. High heat, fast sellout, and fans posting recipes like trophies. What do Sydney Sweeney's soap drop, Taylor Swift's tickets, and your next launch have in common? Well, they're not bought, they're bragged about. Fanfare turns your drop into a moment. Fanfare cues real fans, blocks bots, and builds launch experiences worth screenshotting. Want hype without the heartbreak? Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook with our proven success formula and make your next launch unforgettable at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, fanfare.io/playbook. This is the Smart Passive Income Podcast, session number 38. My name is Pat Flynn, and I am a crooked arrow.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He runs a 7-minute mile, Ironman, Pat Flynn.
Still using a copy-paste website? Break the template trap with Framer. Whether you're overwhelmed by traditional site builders or frustrated with cookie-cutter designs, Framer gives you the freedom to create a site that's professional, polished, and uniquely yours. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. It's free to start, allowing you to browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something on your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, parallax scrolling, scroll animations, looping animations, and much more in seconds. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting, generating starter layouts, and can even translate your entire site to any language. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of pro on the house. That's framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contractor agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Hey, what's up? This is Pat Flynn, and welcome to session 38 of the Smart Passive Income Podcast. Thank you for listening in. I'm actually recording this session in May of 2012, for those of you who may be listening to this in the future. And, my wife and I are just a few months away from baby number 2. And, we actually find out if it's a boy or a girl next week, and we're doing the whole name thing. If it's a boy, it'll be this name. If it's a girl, it'll be this name. It's really fun times. And I'm not being sarcastic at all. I mean, I absolutely love and cherish this time because, when you have a kid, you begin to experience him or her even before they're born. And this is just all part of the journey, and for those of you with kids, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't have kids, just try to enjoy the time you have to sleep, because when that baby comes, sleep time pretty much goes out the window. So that's all I have to say about that. Now, I also have a lot of things coming up on my plate. I have Crooked Arrows coming out. As many of you know, if you listened a few sessions back, I was hired to be the director of web and social media for a Hollywood movie that's coming out. It's coming out in a couple weeks, and that's very, very exciting. I'm actually headed to Boston to, go on the red carpet and watch the premiere, which is really cool. And also, I have Blog World Expo coming up in June. I'm actually speaking 3 times at that event, so that should be really interesting. I hope to meet a lot of you there if you can make it. Now, on to today's content. I'm super excited to have a very amazing, successful guest on the show today. A lot of you may know who he is already. He's a writer, he's a traveler, and as he puts it, a fighter of the status quo. And, I've heard so much about this guy. I've heard so much about him over the past few years, but for some reason, we actually never connected until just recently. And he has a website and a blog called The Art of Nonconformity. He holds an annual conference, which is called the World Domination Summit, which is an amazing name for a conference, by the way. And I've heard so many good things about it, too, and just him in general. And what I love about him the most is that he's really big on the idea of achieving personal goals while always providing a service to others, which I think is really important. You could do things for yourself to live a better life, as we all should do, but at the same time, you can do that while improving the lives of other people. And this is something that I absolutely believe in. It is absolutely reflected in his new book, The $100 Startup, which is what I had the pleasure of reading last week. And I will be honest and upfront with you. This person, the author of this book, sent me a review copy, and I actually get review copies for books at least once every 2 weeks. I have a ton of books that people just sent me, probably hoping to get, a review like this out of them. But, I ignore most of them. I don't know who these people are. And, I just had to read The $100 Startup. And I'm so glad I did. It's an amazing book. So I'm really happy to have the author, Chris Guillebeau, on with us on the SPI podcast. So welcome, Chris. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Pat. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. And as you said, great to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, just tell us what you do. You have your blog, The Art of Nonconformity, the World Domination Summit. You once wrote an article called The Brief Guide to World Domination that was read by 100,000 people in 60 countries in the first 6 months. What does all this talk about world domination about? What does it all mean? Like, what's your philosophy?
Sure. World domination was originally mostly just a branding thing. I wanted to have something fun to kind of come out with. And I just returned to the U.S. and I think it was 2006. I had lived overseas for about 4 years in West Africa. So I had this long volunteer experience. I had also been self-employed for most of my life, and I had started traveling quite a bit then. So I think at that point I'd been to maybe 50 or 60 countries or so. And I was beginning this project to try to visit every country in the world. And so I was doing all these different things, but I felt like there was no convergence point. I felt like I had no platform, and there wasn't anything that kind of tied things together. And so that's when I started the Art of Nonconformity. A few months later, put out that first manifesto called A Brief Guide to World Domination, and that was just kind of outlining like a way of life, outlining a worldview based on some of the things that you said in your intro there about achieving personal goals for yourself, about going on this big quest, whatever the quest is, for you, while also, hopefully connecting that to something that makes the world a better place for other people. So for the past 4 years, I've been doing that, writing, traveling, starting businesses, putting out books, and I feel very fortunate that I can do what I do, and I love every day of it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you just mentioned you've been starting businesses and writing books and stuff, and we'll get to the book in a little bit. But what kind of businesses are you up to right now?
These days, 100% of what I do, 100% of my income, and 100% of all of my work relates to the art of nonconformity in one way or another. So, when I started the blog in 2008, I didn't really have a smart passive income strategy. I didn't have much of a monetization strategy at all. It just kind of came about organically. I just started listening. I started paying attention to the community and the people who are reading, and kind of like understanding the deeper questions that they had. And a lot of them had questions about travel hacking, about flying around the world and saving money on flights.
Hmm.
And they also wanted to learn about self-employment. So I just kind of started creating resources in response to those needs. So now I operate unconventionalguides.com. And that's probably my main business. And then there's a related business called Travel Hacking Cartel. That's a membership site that helps people with frequent flyer miles. Then I have the print books, which I do. My first book was Art of Nonconformity. Now the second book, The $100 Startup. I also do some speaking. I write a newspaper column, some freelance writing. So a lot of different things, but it all relates to the hub of Art of Nonconformity.
Hmm. Okay, so I mean, this is just sounds like an amazing journey that you've had. What happened before you started traveling? I mean, who was Chris before all this stuff started to happen for you?
Yeah, good question. Well, back in the day, Chris was a juvenile delinquent. He kept getting in trouble and stealing cars, and was a high school dropout. So
Wow.
fortunately, I kind of reformed my ways a little bit, and I still was never a good employee. Like I never really wanted to work for someone. So long ago, at the end of the '90s, early 2000, there was this new website called eBay.com, and I started selling things on eBay. I started learning about affiliate marketing. I learned about once Google AdWords and AdSense started, I learned about this kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of like hustling and anything I can do to make a living. And after 9/11, I was depressed like everybody else was. And just out of response to that, that's how the volunteer opportunity in West Africa came up. I was reading the internet, one night, and I heard this inspiring story of this guy, of a surgeon from California who had given up like 18 years of his life to go and work for this medical charity. And I thought, well, if he can do that like for 18 years, at least I can do 2 years or 3 years or whatever.
Hmm.
So I ended up spending 4 years over there. And then I supported myself the whole time, through the side businesses and different things that I was working on.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. I mean, wow. I mean, it's really cool to hear stories of people who were always getting into trouble, and just things weren't going right for them, and to just have it turn around. I mean, I feel that that's actually a pretty common way that people find success. You often hear these entrepreneurs, and they, they weren't the 4.0
Right.
students in high school, and they were the high school dropouts. I mean, do you think there's any correlation there between maybe not following the rules correctly, but also succeeding later in life?
I think there's definitely a correlation between questioning authority, or maybe, just asking questions in general and trying to understand like root motivations, like why do we do this? What's the point of this? It doesn't necessarily mean, that you should go out and steal cars or burn houses down or
Right,
whatever,
right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
some of the rules are probably there for good reason.
Hmm.
But I think, I think the curiosity factor is good. And then maybe a little bit of an independent streak is also common in entrepreneurs.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely, and that ties right into your new book, The $100 Startup, which I want to talk about in a little bit. And the subtitle, reinvent the way you make a living, do what you love, and create a new future. So, how does one do that? How does one, we're taught from an early age, at least I was, and I was lucky enough to get laid off, so I realized what else was out there. But so many people are following the system the way they're quote supposed to do it. And
Right.
a lot of people are happy with their lives that way, but a lot of people are not. So is this the book for them? And kind of if maybe in 2 or 3 sentences, what can this book teach people?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I feel like you have like 3 or 4 great questions there.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's fine.
One at a time. I got to
That's
give
all
it
right.
one at a time.
So the last thing you said was, is it a lot of people are happy doing what they're doing and other people are dissatisfied? That's a good point. I would say those who are happy doing what they're doing, like good for them, that's great. My work isn't necessarily for them. My work is more for the dissatisfied. It's more for people who are like, yeah, I want to make a change. I want to do something, for myself, but I just don't know what the next step is.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of resources out there that are kind of motivating or inspirational, and they say like go for it. And I think that's great. But a lot of people are already in that place. They're like, yeah, I want to go for it, but what do I do? How do I take that next step? And I like what you said about how you felt you were lucky, in being laid off.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, I talked with a lot of people, in the research for this book, and a number of them also had been laid off, and they also said, most of them said it was fairly traumatic, or at least depressing, and a little bit scary when that happened. But then it turned into a positive experience as they kind of reevaluated and thought, okay, what is it that I really want to do, and how can I make something for myself? So in essence, the 2 to 3 sentences, the book is about how to start a business by using the skills you already have without going back to business school, without writing a 60-page business plan that no one's ever going to read, without going to the bank to beg for money.
Mhm.
It's about how to take what you have and make something new.
Now, my follow-up question to that would be, I talk to a lot of people about, starting their own businesses too. And one of the first things that a lot of people tell me is, what, I don't have what it takes. I don't have a special skill. There's really nothing I can do that is different from anybody else. Why, how am I going to succeed? And what would be your response to those types of comments?
Yeah, a lot of people feel like they have no skills, and that's really interesting. I always, kind of probe a little bit when someone says like, I feel like I have no marketable skills. So my response is always, okay, what skills do you have, or what is your training? What different jobs have you worked? One of the things that I learned was there's this whole principle of skill transformation. If you're good at one thing, you're probably good at something else,
Hmm.
right? So the classic example is if you're a teacher, then of course you're good at teaching. You've been trained in this, you have experience in it, but you're probably also a good communicator in general.
Hmm.
You're probably good at crowd control. You're probably good at discipline. You're probably good at lesson planning, about factoring, like you have like a limited amount of time, and how do you like prepare for the week and all these different things. You're probably good at multitasking. There's all these different skills. If you're an engineer and you have this analytical perspective, you're good at reverse engineering. So it's often helpful to look and say, okay, what are the skills that I have, and how could those skills be applied in a different way? One of the stories from the book comes from London, and I believe the woman's name was Kat Alder. And Kat was a waitress, and she was a great waitress, and she kept getting a lot of compliments and good tips, and she was very outgoing. She was good at upselling, and finally someone said to her, you'd be really good at PR. And at the time, she didn't even know what PR was. She didn't know it stood for like public relations.
Hmm.
But she ended up starting a PR firm that now operates in, I think, 4 continents or something. She basically, used the communication skills that she had, but instead of like applying them, in a low earning job, she found a way to apply them, to build this, medium-sized business.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I always find that to be the case. You just kind of have to dig a little bit deeper and really see, just like you said, you may not be able to find exactly what you're going to do right off the bat, but you can kind of eventually lead yourself to a particular, trade or a particular business that you might be interested in that you might not have seen at first. You just have to dig deeper. And I think a lot of what it is that excuse of, I just don't have the skills to do anything. It's almost like just a lack of self-confidence.
Right.
For some people, it's just laziness.
Yeah.
Just to be upfront and honest, and for those people who aren't so confident, I would say, that's natural. And
Yeah.
when you're scared about doing something, that's actually a good sign, because that means that if you were to actually do that and complete it, or follow your dream and follow that path, that would actually make an impact on your life. If it was just something that was easy and you weren't scared about it, then it probably isn't going to have that much of an effect on your life.
Yes. I completely agree. The other advice I would have would be, think about the things that people ask you about. There's probably something that you're an expert in. It may be like some, very esoteric topic. It may be something that you think is kind of random, but what is it that people are always asking for your advice about? What is it that people always come to you and ask for help about? There may very well be a business model there, even though you didn't expect it. So there was another story by this guy named Gary Leff, who started this business helping people, use their frequent flyer miles to book award trips around the world. And this started because people were always asking him. He was traveling around the world, always in first class, using his miles. And so all his colleagues kept asking him and saying, I'm taking my wife on our honeymoon or our anniversary trip to Paris. How can I get upgraded? How can I, travel for free? And so he was doing that for free. And then finally he just, built a little one-page website and said, if anybody needs me to do this for you, I'll do it. And he charged $250. And the long story short is this is now a low six-figure, I think $100,000 plus, annual income that he has in addition to the regular job that he has. So this is kind of like one of those things that is totally free. Anybody who wants to can, book their own frequent flyer tickets. But he's just operating this service as a convenience, for people who just don't care or don't want to learn how it works. So pay attention to the questions that people ask you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that advice. Now, I want to go into chapter 2 really quick because this is actually something that had a big impact on me and just my thinking about doing business. And we all know the saying, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for the rest of his life. But you kind of have a different stance on that. I mean, I'd like for you to kind of explain your thinking and kind of your as far as business is concerned, what the right saying should be.
Yeah, I think the saying that I use is, if you now I'm probably gonna get this wrong. Now you've all said it. You set it up for me so properly.
It's okay. I can edit it in.
That's all right. Here, let's try that again. The saying that I use is, catch a man a fish and you can sell it to him. Teach a man to fish and you ruin a wonderful business opportunity. So, what this means is not everybody actually wants to learn how to fish. If you're working with homeless fishermen, then that's a great strategy. The whole strategy about teach a man to fish, that's great. But a lot of us just don't care about the details of, lots of specific things. And a lot of us actually just want things, done for us. So we don't necessarily care about how it works. And I learned this in my business, in the different products that I offer, specifically in the travel field. I started by offering, fairly complex products. And I thought, because I traveled to like 20 countries a year, I just assumed, incorrectly as it turned out, that that's what everybody else wanted to do as well. Mm-hmm. And, I started by offering a product that was fairly comprehensive and maybe higher level, and I didn't get that great of a response. And then I don't want to say I dumbed it down because I'm still providing good value, but I simplified and said, okay, like if you don't care about traveling to 20 countries a year, you just want to go to one country, like you want to go somewhere and you want to do it for free, this next product will help you do that. That product, sold much, much better than the first one did.
Yeah, that reminds me of actually a product that Ramit Sethi came out with. Yeah, I think it's how to make your first $1,000 or something like that. And he purposely made it $1,000 instead of 10,000 or 100,000, just because people believe that they could more easily achieve 1,000. And a lot of his, I'm probably going to be plugging something for him, anyways. But not to say that only people who go to that course are only making $1,000. A lot of them are making a lot more, but it was the belief that they could reach that lower kind of attainable, what seemed to be an attainable goal that actually forced them to take action.
Right, and that's his whole secret, is that then they'll take action and then they will make more than $1,000. Which is why. So then he addresses the perceived need, and then he also over delivers in the product for those who actually follow the steps.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now here's another question for you. You talk a lot about passion and following your passions, which I know is a big theme throughout a lot of these books. And I think it's really important, too, because, why would you want to start a business on something that you're not passionate about? Right. Now, I've asked this question on a couple episodes before, and, I would love to hear your response to this because I think you're an expert in this. So, are all passions profitable?
Definitely not. All passions are not profitable. There's lots of passions that you and I probably have that no one else cares about. Like, I don't know if you ever played video games. For a long time, I was a gamer. Fortunately, I've given that up. But for a long time, I played Halo almost every night. I thought I was pretty good at it. But, nobody was coming along to offer me money about it. I didn't develop an ebook about it or start a blog with AdSense on it. I like to eat pizza, but nobody's going to, pay me for that. So the whole point is you have to connect your passion with something that's valuable, with something that's desirable, by the marketplace. And so this is why, we can't just throw passion out altogether, because, I do what I'm passionate about, and so do you, and lots of successful entrepreneurs do. So it does work. It's just a question of, finding what I call the convergence point between like your skills, your interests, your passion, and then what other people value enough to pay for. So, there's some things in one circle and there's some things in the other circle, but if you can find what goes in the middle, that's, where a successful business is found. So the formula that I use in the book, I think, is something like, passion plus usefulness equals success. So if you take your passion and then make something useful, like the frequent flyer guy did, like we did with the travel products, like Ramit did, that's where you're going to have a big success.
Yeah, absolutely. That useful part of it is a big key component of that equation in order to find success. And it's really hard for me not to keep going. And I'm flipping through the book right now in front of me, and there's so many interesting stories and interesting parts of the book that I want to hit on, but I don't want to give it all away, obviously. So I'm probably gonna. It's really hard for me not to just talk about the whole book right now. But anyway, you mentioned a ton of success stories, and I think that's what stands out about your book is there's just so much success stories in the book, and these are from people that I know too, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's what the SPI audience really loves to hear. That's the success story interviews that I've had on this show are some of the most listened to episodes. And so, I mean, are there any is there maybe one other success story that you'd like to share from the hundreds of people you've interviewed and kind of done research with for this book that you might want to share with the
I'm trying to think what is the best one. When we started the research for this book, I put out like a big call. I heard from more than 1,500 people who responded. We had really specific characteristics that people had to meet. They had to make at least $50,000 a year or more, and a lot of them made a lot more. But we put $50,000 as the baseline, as the average U.S. income. Mm-hmm. They had to be willing to share complete financial information, like they had to talk about how much money they made and how much it cost to start up. Low startup costs, fewer than 5 employees, no special skills. So the point is, we had some really strict, criteria, but we still heard from a ton of people.
Yeah, that's cool.
Then, it was great. And then, then it was a whole process of like narrowing it down and how do we get to those, 70 stories that we're really going to highlight in the book. So once I got, towards that bottom range, I wanted to present a number of diverse stories. I didn't want it to be a book about pro bloggers. For the most part, like people like you and me, like I feel like we get enough attention already, and like mm-hmm. that's covered very well, like online. I wanted to have some of them, but I also wanted to talk about retail businesses. So there's a story of a guy who got laid off here in Portland, Oregon, and he had been in media sales. He had worked like his whole career there. He was middle-aged. He had a family. So he drives home and he calls his wife and says, "Oh, honey, I've lost my job." And she says, "What are we going to do?" And he's like, "Well, I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll figure something out." And, he basically like starts looking for a job, and then he's unsuccessful in doing so just because so many other people are looking in the recession. Mm-hmm. And a friend of his calls him and says, like, "I've got this truck full of mattresses." His friend owned a furniture store, which sounds kind of weird, but "I've got this truckload of mattresses and I don't have a use for them. Do you want them? Like maybe you can sell them one at a time on Craigslist or something, And he thinks about it. He's like, "Okay, I'm not doing anything else." So basically, like the long story short is he buys the mattresses. He ends up starting a mattress store, an unconventional mattress store. The whole point of it is like a friendly place, a fun place. The kids can come and hang out. He starts the world's first mattress delivery by bicycle service.
What? That is awesome.
He actually delivers the bikes, around town, or delivers the mattresses by bike around town, which of course is like really popular. It's on YouTube and stuff. And so this is like 3 years, so 3 years ago, this is when this happened. And now the business is a multi-million-dollar business. And he says pretty much the same thing you said in the beginning. He's like, if you had said to me, when I got laid off, this was the best thing to ever happen to me, I would have thought that was crazy. But, I'm so glad that I'm doing this. And, our family has this freedom, and our customers, really have value. And, we had a customer that came the first year for their newborn, and they came back, when she was 3 for their crib. And I just feel like I'm, making a difference in the community. So, I mean, just a lot of stories of people doing fun things, in their own way.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I think it's really awesome. And I just want to thank you for going around and doing all that research and providing all that inspiration in this book. Just to finish up with the book before I move on to something else. And I'd like to hear you answer this question. And, I could pitch to this book as much as I want. I mean, I really do love it. But, there's a lot of books that I guess could be considered similar. For example, 4 Hour Work Week, a very inspirational book about, living your own lifestyle that you want to live, or even sort of along the same lines as Rework.
Yep.
How does this book stand out? Why should people read The $100 Startup?
Yeah, good question. I mean, those other books you named are great, and I respect those authors, and there's lots of other authors that are great. So I guess we all write from our own context. We all write from our own history, and my history, my worldview is based on 10 years of being self-employed, and never wanting to work for anyone else, and always finding my own way. And then also, crafting this maybe bigger aspect, or not, I don't want to say bigger, maybe a different aspect than some of those other authors have done, just in terms of the volunteer work, and maybe connecting that towards something greater or different in the world. And then I guess the book itself, it's intended to be a very data-driven book. It's intended to be like a book about checklists and next steps. And if you don't know what to do, here's 300 pages, telling you here's what you can do and here's what not to do, and here's how people have done it and succeeded or failed, and here's what you can learn from it. But I certainly think people can learn from all kinds of books and resources.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. That's what makes it stand out to me the most, is it's actionable, and there are checklists in there, and that's what I love about it. So again, thank you for taking time to write a book and for discussing it with us on the show today.
Sure, of course, man.
Now, I want to ask you specifically about book publishing in general, and obviously this is something that you're doing and you're familiar with. I've been approached by a couple of publishers, and this is the first time I'm really mentioning this to my audience. I've been approached by a couple of publishers and asked to create proposals to write books, and it's always been a lifelong dream of mine to write and publish a book. I want to go to a store and bring my son and be like, "Hey, that's Daddy's book." Hopefully it's in the right section though. I've always wanted to do that, and then getting this opportunity with these publishers just seemed like perfect. But then I started hearing, I started asking around, and people, I started getting 50-50 on, Pat, you should do this, or no, you should self-publish. You have a platform already with a ton of, you can make more money by self-publishing, or is it all about the money? It's just confusing the heck out of me. So can you enlighten me? I know with $100 Startup, you went through a traditional publisher, and I'd love to know why, or kind of what your thought process is behind that.
Well, my initial motivation for writing books was very similar to what it sounds like yours is. I always liked books. I was a big reader growing up, and books were special to me. And my dad would take me to the bookstore and, pick out books for me. And so I just grew up reading, and books were special. And so when I became a writer, I loved the blog, and I still love the blog, and I love the other online writing that I do. But I guess for me, there was just something different and something special, about writing a book. And it was a very different process, both the first time and then for the $100 Startup, in terms of the writing and the editing, and then publishing and distribution. And so I learned a great deal from doing it. And I'm actually very positive on traditional publishing. Of course, I'm favorable towards self-publishing as well. I do some of that with my products. But the reality is, without a traditional publisher, you can certainly be successful in lots of ways. But a traditional publisher can open doors that self-publishing can't. I mean, there's no way that I could get my book in Barnes and Noble, across the country, for example, or in all the different independent bookstores. And I think we tend to forget, those of us who are online all the time, which I certainly am, we tend to forget there's still a lot of people that don't read blogs, or they don't listen to podcasts. There's a lot of people who don't use Twitter. And so when I went on my first book tour, I went to all 50 states, and almost every stop I had people coming out who heard about the book from the bookstore itself, and I got a lot of emails from people who said, I saw your book in the airport, and that's how I heard about you. So it really is, a totally different audience. I mean, of course, there's some overlap, but it's a totally different way to reach new people and connect with people in a different way. So I'm overall very positive about book publishing.
That's interesting. I mean, a follow-up question would be, and I've heard this before, and I'd love to get your insight, is do you give up control of a number of things when you go traditional instead of self-publishing? Because I know that for self-publishing, you can make the cover exactly how you want it, or you don't have to edit quite as much. I mean, do you give up a lot of that control, and do you feel it's maybe too much, or you've had? I mean, I guess it depends on the publisher, but you.
Yeah, it depends on well, it's going to depend on each specific situation. I mean, it's going to the point is when you go to a situation like that, by default you're working with a team, and so it's not just you. Where
Mm-hmm.
self-publishing, you can make all the decisions, and that's advantageous in some ways. Perhaps it's disadvantageous in other ways because you're not necessarily getting a lot of input. And people always like to make fun of traditional publishers, but there are some things that they know quite well, and they've been doing this a long time. And in some ways, it's good to work with a team. So yeah, of course, you're going to give up a certain degree of control. But I guess what you hope for is that the benefits you receive are going to exceed that. And different authors might answer that question in different ways. But for me, it's been totally worth it, and I'm glad to have done it.
Great. Now, do you feel that because of the rise of ebooks and Amazon Kindle and all that stuff, that's going to have an effect on maybe, say, if I wanted to publish a traditional book 5 years from now, what you think you think 5 years from now it's still going to be the same, or
Well, I think the world of publishing is constantly changing, but I think print books will certainly be around 5 years from now. I hope so. I mean, I still like to read print books, and I'm online all the time.
Mhm.
And I mean, publishers are signing deals now for 3 to 5 years away. They've been around a long time, so they have to adapt as well, and they're adapting to digital. I mean, they're a little bit slow, and it's true that Amazon is ahead of Random House and Simon and Schuster and all of that. But the industry's been around a long time, so I don't think it's one way or another. It's not like say you choose to write this book. It's not like you're turning your back on everything that you've done.
Mhm.
You've still got the audience, you've still got the podcast, you've got the blog, you've got everything else. It's an extension, of all of your other work, and it will bring you people that you wouldn't otherwise have.
Right. No, I'm feeling you on that, and it'll be interesting because I have a couple guests coming on later episodes that are going to kind of provide their insight on self-publishing and why they do that instead. So this should be a pretty interesting debate, and I'm pretty sure there's probably no correct answer, and it's all dependent on each person and their individual case and what the book is about and who their audience is. But it's just very interesting. It just seems to be a very debatable topic at this moment in time. And
Yeah,
so
but I would say like the overall best answer is do write the book, however you publish it. Don't spend
yes.
years thinking about where it's going to be published. I mean, the more important thing is to get your work out to the world, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I could debate this whole debate for years and then nothing
Right.
will ever come out of it.
Right.
So yeah, no, thank you for saying that. So couple final things before we finish up. What are maybe one or two tips you have for people who are looking to, kind of going back to business again?
Mm.
What are maybe one or two tips you have for people who are just starting out, and what can help them kind of fast track their way to success?
Okay. So a couple things. First thing I think of is a lot of people have what they think of as business ideas. A lot of people are like, oh, I've got this great idea for a business, or I've got some idea. Maybe this could be a business idea. The problem is that they just have like a general idea. They have more of a vague idea. They don't really have a specific business idea. And so I always encourage people as quickly as you can, like start thinking about those ideas in terms of offers. Think about like what you're actually going to create and provide. If you have this interest in this topic, think, okay, how can I convert this to a product or a service? And what's it going to look like? How much is it going to cost? To whom am I going to offer it? Once you start thinking about your business ideas in that kind of framework, then you can take action much quicker, because a lot of times people start with this general thing and they're like, oh, it's just so big, I don't know what the next step is. But if you have the offer, then you can create the product or the service, or whatever it is you're trying to do. The next thing is I'm always a big fan of starting where you are and getting something out to the world. And I purposely set deadlines for myself. If I think of a project, I try to have it out to the world within 30 days. And even if you've never made a website before, you can get a free account at WordPress.com, or you can set up a one-page website somewhere. If it looks terrible, well, that's okay. You can fix it. But as soon as you can, get that website up and make sure the website has a PayPal button. Lots of people, lots of people have like something out there, but it's always like, contact me, for pricing, or contact me if you want to hire me or something. But put those PayPal buttons, on the site, find a way to get paid. And then as soon as you can get that first sale, whatever it is, that first income, even if it's like $5, most people that I talked to found that very empowering. They found that very like encouraging, like the moment that, some kind of sale came in that they generated themselves, a stranger came to their website and, gave their credit card number. Like that's a very, I think that's a very significant thing. And so the longer you delay that, the more that you're effectively, delaying or deferring your dream. And so get to that moment as quickly as possible. And then you can always scale, and then you can tweak, and then you can reevaluate from there.
Yeah, I mean, those are some excellent tips. And I really like what you said about thinking about the offer, not just the product and what the product is, but what, like you were talking about your equation earlier, like how useful is that? And then how are you going to get people to understand that that's something that's useful for them? And then the deadline thing, I mean, that's a mind trick I play with myself all the time. I always set deadlines for myself. And just the fact that you reiterated that, just like what you talked about with my book, just get something out there, and then you can improve on it later. But, I always have the saying, every day you don't have something up there online for sale is a day of potential income lost.
Right.
And,
exactly. I agree. So now you have a deadline to decide something about your book.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Okay.
Look it up.
All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And if, the $100 startup, it comes out on May 8th. And so I again, thank you for the early copy for me to review. I really appreciate that. And, I don't usually pitch books very often here on the blog, but, this is one that I definitely recommend people should get. And if people want to go learn more about you, Chris, I know you're a ton of places online. Where's the one place they should go to contact you and get learn more about you?
They can go to chrisguillebeau.com, which no one can ever spell. So they could also go to artofnonconformity.com, and that will redirect them.
Nice. Very smart.
I learned.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. And, it was great connecting with you today. I hope we can do it again in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great. I appreciate it, Pat.
All right. Take care. All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Chris Guillebeau from theartofnonconformity.com and the author of the new book, The $100 Startup, a book that I definitely recommend, and I'm putting up there next to, the 4-Hour Workweek and Rework and Switch and all those books. I'm definitely going to put it in my resources page. And if you want to check out the show notes to get links to that book and any other thing that we mentioned on this particular episode, go ahead and go to smartpassiveincome.com/session38, and you'll be directed right to the blog post. So thank you so much for listening in. I appreciate all of your support, and I'll see you in episode 39. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast at www.smartpassiveincome.com.
Have you dreamt about being your own boss, but still haven't made the first steps to making that dream a reality? Well, I get that. Starting a business can feel super overwhelming with legal forms, paperwork, finances. It's a lot. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Taylor Brands. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal assets and the business assets separate from day one. From there, you get access to everything you need to get off the ground. Legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program, all designed to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free, personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, listeners of this show get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. All you have to do is head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands. Hey, fellow podcaster, does this sound like something you've experienced? Record your podcast episode on one platform, download the files, edit in another app, then fire up a different tool just to create these social clips? Well, it can be clunky, time-consuming, and frankly overwhelming, especially for creators trying to grow. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Riverside. Riverside is the all-in-one platform. Record, edit, and repurpose your podcast content all in one place. You just log in, record with your guests no matter where you are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video. We use Riverside here at SPI as well now. With built-in AI, I can automatically clean up my audio, saving myself so much editing time, and it can even auto-generate clips to make promoting the show a breeze. And with Magic Clips, I can grab the best moments and repurpose them as short-form video, perfect for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram, without re-recording a thing. So if you're tired of juggling tools and want a faster, simpler way to create and scale your content, it's time to try Riverside, built by creators for creators. Just go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART.